questions that you should ask if you're looking to work with an MSP or you currently are working with an MSP. Here are some questions that you should ask. So I'm going to read some of these questions that we wrote up here, right? Service practices and offerings and getting to know your business. Will the MSP services help you as a business owner with future technology planning and give you a competitive edge, right? So Dan, what do we mean by that when we ask that question? What sort of results do you want to hear back from the MSP when you talk about, their service practices and offerings and how they're getting to know the business?
Couple things. They should know your industry. Well, in a perfect scenario, the MSP you're working with should know your industry or very similar industries well enough to be able to have a pulse in that industry and anticipate things that you may need to spend money on or handle from a security standpoint in the future. Okay. So if you're in, say you own movie theaters and you have an MSP, and that MSP is sort of unfamiliar with how those movie theaters work and sort of unfamiliar with general point of sale systems and separating networks so they're PCI compliant. If they don't know those things, they may not know the right questions to ask to keep you safe on a future potential PCI audit, right? Or the opposite version of that, which is they may be able to ask questions that would help in a future PCI audit because they know the industry, they know the payment card industry. So that's the value that your MSP should bring, is they should know your industry and be able to help you budget and plan from a security standpoint and operational standpoint in your industry every year. And that's very, very valuable, but that's something that I would expect from your MSP. And that's a question to ask, how they do that. How do you budget? How do you know industry, things that are coming in industry? How do you keep up with the security of payment card industry? How do you do this? How do you do that? And they should have a reasonably good answer for all of those things.
And how do their products align with that, right? That's the thing
fair.
Is like, great, so you say all that stuff, but explain to me how your products work, right? Yeah. And if they're like, well, we just kind of sell you some IT, right? Like having the ability to expand into other products and solutions. If they offer a consulting line, if they offer additional security services as your company might be growing, if they offer the opportunity to, implement certain types of projects in order to make the solutions more effective or to help with your business, those are things that you want to ask, right? Like, what's the alignment to the business and the processes and the service products that are being offered, I think is a fair question to ask.
That's terrific.
Second question, costs and achieving the business goals of the company, right? Are the MSP services tailored to your business needs, or do they offer a one-size-fits-all approach, right? Is there some level of customization, or do you just have to deal with whatever they offer? And I'll take this one because I think it's important to talk a little bit about service offerings, right? There's a bunch of different ways that can go. So when you're talking to your MSP or you're talking to a potential MSP and you want to talk about achieving the business goals and tailoring solutions, what you want to be able to do is make sure that their service offerings are scalable, right? As you grow and contract as an organization, that there's an opportunity there. You also want to make sure that if they provide you a service or a solution, that it is profitable for them, right? Like, you want them to be in a position where they retain their talent, that they're able to continue to provide you best-in-class tools, that they're working on their relationships, right? So you don't want to have an approach where they're in there and they're providing you a lot of services for a little amount of money, right? Like, that's an important thing to talk about when it comes to cost. And then from your organization standpoint, like what your costs are, can you bolt on things later, right? How are they customized? So you can go one way too far where everything's included and you get everything you want for a very little price. That may not be the best solution for your business. Or you may go all the way down the road where this is what you get and you get nothing more, right? And then that might be a little bit problematic because then you're kind of, everything is a la carte and it's very difficult. So what you really want to do is find out how they're putting the solutions together so that you've got flexibility within the solution and that you can maximize that for your business, and it still manages to put you in a position to not have to pay way more than you should, or pay so little that the MSP may not be in a position to support you long-term. right?
Yeah, I'd say that we see people come from smaller MSPs. At some point, you're probably going to outgrow your small MSP. That's kind of what we see. So you have a small MSP, say they have 5 people, you work with them, and eventually you kind of outgrow their capability. One of the big changes people talk about is like, well, my small MSP, they would do everything for me. They would create these custom reports. They would, the account manager would come meet with me 3 times a week, or what, this really gold plated, this really boutique solution. Well, that's almost a red flag in itself, because that doesn't scale. That if they're one guy that's really, really smart and those 5 people leaves, what happens to that solution? So just having an understanding of, you want a standardized solution from your MSP, so you know what you're getting and you know what to expect. But then, in my opinion, Andrew may correct me, you want a little bit of boutique in there, because you want somebody that knows you, that knows your business, that knows the people that work there, that can come over and bring donuts, and it's a very comfortable thing, that will, text you back when they're at their kids' practice and they're happy to do it. Those are the kind of things that you want, but there's a real red flag to having this really, really unique approach to your account, and you get very special stuff, and you get really, really unique things. That's really hard to maintain as an MSP. Normally, you can only do it if you're tiny, and if you lose the guy that's really good at it, you're in trouble. So just knowing that could be a red flag too is important.
Yep, absolutely. And we see that, like, where we say, we can customize solutions as an MSP, but creating what we'll call a completely bespoke solution that's unique to that one account is something that very rarely ends in success.
Yeah.
It seems like a great idea during the sales cycle. Like, clients, like, we win, the MSPs, like, we win. And then when everything goes into like operations, this one thing that nobody thought about, that doesn't happen for any other client but this one client, winds up becoming a problem, because nobody ever can execute it effectively. And everybody gets mad because operations can't get it done. The client's mad because it was agreed to and it didn't get accomplished. So we really want to make sure that when clients are having these conversations with MSPs, they're the mature MSPs, and when you get maximizing your spend, are going to give you a customized solution that fits into a scalable operations platform, rather than a completely unique one-off solution that only one person can support and cannot be built out so that you can maintain SLAs, that you can retain talent, that you can do all the things that are necessary to provide services. So those are things that you want to talk to your MSP about.
Great way.
It's important. Like, are you making money on our account? Right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You want to hear them say, you don't want them to be like, yeah, you're getting gouged, but you want to be like, yeah, no, you guys are a good, profitable account. We like working with you. And like, when you hear that from your MSP, that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
That means everybody's winning. Like, if you're happy with your services and they're making money with you, there's a great partnership going on there. And that means that y'all will be able to grow together as organizations, rather than being like, yeah, no, like, you're beating us up and we undersold this contract. And, that's a problem. Right? It's a conversation that should happen. So third question, communication, response times, processes. What should a company expect with support and response times, onboarding, and regular check-ins in regards to working with an MSP? Sure. So Dan, this is kind of solely kind of in your wheelhouse. Like, talk a little bit about that if you could.
Absolutely, I will. So I'm looking at the question here. So regarding support and response times, those have been defined when you started working with your MSP. There's probably some contractual language that talks about it, that says we will respond to your ticket in X. That could be an example of what the contract language says. So you need to know what all of those things are that were agreed upon in the contract, that are actually written into the contract. Then you need to know any other terminology or ways that is defined outside of the contract. For example, the MSP may have categories when you submit tickets that say on fire, not on fire, next week, something like that, right? Well, you need to know what those mean and what the definition of attending to that is on the MSP side. Not only do you need to know that, you need to really understand if contractually the MSP, and they all do this, they say, we're going to respond within an hour, contractually, or whatever it is, whatever this time is. Well, as the client, you would say, okay, respond. Does that mean you fix it? And the client's like, no. Or the MSP is like, no, we respond and we start working the issue. Okay, great. but understanding those things is super important, understanding what the response time should be. And then the last part of that is if those response times aren't adhered to, what happens? Nothing. Does the MSP even know that they're not being adhered to? Do you have a way to escalate, or what is your way to escalate? You should have a way to say, look, this thing should have been attended to in this amount of time. It doesn't look like it was. I checked my ticketing portal and I don't see anything. I need to escalate this. You should have a method to do that. So you should understand how all of that works, both on the ticket submission side, but also then on the MSP side. So knowing that is very, very important. Next, as far as onboarding, I mean, that could be any nature of things. So onboarding we'll assume in this case, it means new user onboarding for your company. Terrific. What does that mean for the MSP? They're like, we set up an email account and put a name on it. Okay, cool. Is that all you do? Yes. All right, terrific. How quickly do you do that? How far out do you need a ticket to be successful to have that done when this person starts? Well, we need it 2 weeks out. Okay, great. And then what information do you need in that ticket to get this done? Well, we need the name and the email address. And if you provide us those things, we will get this done for you. That gets infinitely more complex for most companies because you have all kinds of security permissions that need to be set, computers that need to be set up, applications that need to be set up, all of this other stuff. But as the buyer, you need to understand what your role in that is onboarding. When do you need to provide stuff, and what does that stuff need to be? And then the MSP needs to tell you, yes, we will receive your stuff. We will set up this stuff. We will do this. It's documented. Multiple people on our team know how to do it, so on and so forth. And that needs to be understood on both sides. Lastly, the regular check-ins component. What does that mean to the MSP? What do they tell you you're going to get when you sign up with them? They'll say, well, you have a dedicated technical account lead that helps you with your issues. Well, do I ever get to talk to my account manager? Yes, when they're trying to sell you something. Do I ever get consultative time with anybody? No. Do I ever get to talk to the procurement guy? No. Or vice versa. Yeah, you get to talk to all these people all the time. They're always available for you 24/7. It's like, okay, well, what's in the contract? Well, our contract says you get a scheduled strategic business review with somebody in my position X amount of times per year. Oh, cool. So I get that. Yes, it's in the contract. And what do you do during that time? Well, we go through this, that, and the other. Here's a list of what we talk about. Great. I get that every year. Yes. So you know that's a regular, something that should happen according to your contract and the agreement between the two companies at a regular interval. In addition to that, as your account is onboarded with the MSP, they may say things like, we're going to meet every Wednesday at 2:00 and make sure everything's going smooth for 3 months. It's very, very common when we onboard customers. Okay, cool. So that's another time that I know that's consistently planned. During another thing that could be an example is when we're doing a project for you, you can expect a communication every Friday, and it'll have disinformation in it, and it will highlight anything that is an impediment. So you know that's documented and we need something from you. Okay, great. Those are just examples of regular check-ins, but really they're defined by the MSP. They may or may not be in any contract language. They may be formal or informal, but understanding what those are is very important. And then if you require something else by the nature of your business, say you have a quarterly compliance and audit call that the VCIO needs to sit on, you need to bring that to their attention. Say, do I get this as part of my service? Yeah, I think that's fair. No problem. Or they'll go, no, you have to pay a little bit more for that. That's a senior level person. It's dedicated time. It's a couple of hours at this rate. Okay, cool. But knowing both sides, what you're expected to get from a regular check-in standpoint across the board is very, very important, because you may both have different expectations on that.
That's great. Agree with all that stuff, right? I'm not much I can add there. Question number 4, taking a proactive versus reactive approach. How does the MSP help companies work when they're remote? Is break fix or proactive kind of more their jam? What I think is important is you're talking to your current MSP or you're talking to new MSPs, ask them, right? Are you proactively doing things, or are you waiting for something to break? The right solution that you want to hear is it's a little bit of both, right? So the focus is, yes, we absolutely are trying to be proactive. We want to secure the environment. We want to document the systems in a way that allows us to quickly fix issues. We want to make sure that we're bringing potential problems to the forefront before they become problems and helping to allocate budget to get those things resolved. 100%, doing the prevention thing. When something breaks, we're available to help fix it. And when something breaks, this is what's included in your contract and this is what's not. And then, are they capable of helping people that are working remotely? Are they capable of being able to help work when they're remote, right? So the MSP is like, yeah, we really don't have a remote service desk. We have to send somebody on site. So, if nobody's available, we won't be able to get to your problem until maybe 2 or 3 days. I know that there is a certain level of quality feeling by having a technician show up and personally sit down and get onto your computer. I can tell you that that is not as necessary as it used to be in order to diagnose and solve problems. I would say that 90% of most technology problems can be resolved from the other side of the country through a remote session. And that's really just because if you have good tools and you have good documentation and you have solid processes, it's always a lot faster to submit a ticket and have somebody remote into your computer and try to solve your problem that way, and then dispatch if necessary. And that's not to say that there aren't problems that will absolutely require an on-site person. But for employees to wait to get support in order to do their job, hours for somebody to dispatch, or to hold on to their problems for days until the on-site person shows up, is doing most businesses a disservice when it comes to productivity and what they're paying for in that service delivery. And we strongly recommend working through what the proactive solutions look like, what the reactive solutions look like, and what you're paying for in order to get those sort of SLAs in order to get problems resolved. We really, really encourage our potential clients and folks that are out there just talking to their current MSPs to have that conversation. What does that look like? How quickly are you going to try to get to my problem? Nobody can guarantee when it'll be resolved. We'd be clear about that. But they should be able to guarantee when they will be able to begin addressing your problem. And a lot of the times, if they don't have a solid, robust documentation solution that provides a good, solid remote service desk solution, and there's a lot of dispatch on site, that might put your company in a position to have to wait for support. And we encourage our clients to try to use the service desk when necessary, right? And to really use that as the first step, and then fall back to that on-site support person so that you're getting the full depth and breadth of the entire process when it comes to working with an MSP.
One thing I've seen through the years is, and then it'll always stick out to me, is I was working with the outgoing MSP. We were taking over account, or something like that was happening. And I asked, okay, do we pull your tool set off of these computers, your remote access tool set? And they're like, no, we don't have that. I'm like, well, how do you help people? Well, we go on site for everything. They call us and say, I have a problem. And I said, you have enough staff to go on site basically at a whim? Or, when he's like, no, we don't. Normally it takes a couple weeks. And so that always stuck out to me as something that, if that sounds like something your MSP says to you consistently, or that's what they've sold you, you may really want to look at an MSP that has a more mature solution.
And they may have that more mature solution. You just don't know it, right? Because, maybe they don't have great, strategic account management. Maybe you're on autopilot with them, right? Maybe, they just, you're not loud enough for it to make a difference, but maybe you've decided you want to have that conversation, like reach out, right? See what they offer.
Yeah.
Last but not least, and want to kind of start wrapping things up here, is security practices, right? So what you want to know is, like, what is the security practice of the MSP in regards to not just securing your environment, but their environment, right? And what are they doing to make sure that they're implementing the latest and greatest when it comes to the rapidly evolving security situation that businesses find themselves in day to day? One of the things that we talk about a lot with our clients is, as an MSP, we can be targeted by bad actors, just like most businesses can. And so it's on us as an MSP to do everything that we possibly can to try to protect our systems and our clients' data from that sort of situation. So when we talk to potential clients, we make sure that we have the conversation around, here are things that we're doing ourselves to protect our data and yours, right? Our systems and yours, right? We're deploying zero trust infrastructure to our clients, so that in the event that there is some sort of a breach of our tool set, that doesn't spread, that it gets locked down, that we're able to protect our clients against that sort of issue. Does that mean it's never going to happen or that everything's going to be perfect? No, but it means that we try to put enough stage gates in place that if something were to happen, we could contain it, and that we're on top of it with our clients, and then to provide that level of support to them so that as they're implementing security solutions, that they've got the peace of mind that knowing, yeah, there may one day be a security issue, but we've got enough of these layers in place that hopefully we can contain it and recover from it quickly. So that sort of security needs to be baked into the DNA of how the MSP works and how they provide the services to their clients and how they expect their clients to manage their own infrastructure. Something that we started doing a couple of years ago that you may want to ask in the process of working with an MSP is, do you require us as a business to carry cyber insurance as part of our business policy for insurance? And if the answer is no, then you may want to ask the MSP why, because it's critical that the MSP provide that sort of benchmark for you as a business to say, our solution can only go so far. As a business, if there's some sort of an issue or a breach, you need to be protected financially and technologically. So it's one of those things that really, really encourage companies, because that's where the greatest risk is these days, as things are moving to cloud and, there's less on-site, there's less of that sort of potential that your systems are going to break because your server died, right? More and more of the actuarial work, the risk mitigation comes from some security strategies, both at the MSP level and at the business level. So we strongly encourage that sort of conversation to happen. And as Dan had mentioned before, like, what business are you in and what security overlays do you happen to need? And is the MSP capable of handling that?
Yeah.
Those are important, right? Is there anything I missed there, Dan?
No, I'll share an anecdote of an actual thing that happened. So a friend of mine knows what I do, came to me and she said, "Hey, I'm shopping my MSP." She goes, "I don't think it's something that you want." She was like, I'm leaving in a few weeks. So, but I'm shopping the MSP before I leave. That was her task before she left. And she goes, "Can you help me?" And it was also there was 4 or 5 computers, right? So she said, "Can you write me out some questions I can ask the potential MSPs?" I said, "Sure. Yeah, absolutely." So I wrote her an email and number one was, do you use a one-to-many remote access tool set? And every MSP will say yes. And then my second question I wrote her was, what have you done to mitigate or try to contain that tool from being used to access and attack my environment? Right. And then I had a few other questions. So she took this she told me this story. She took it to the 2 owners of this little bitty MSP that came and talked to her. And she got to number 1 and they said, "Yes, we use X, Okay, well, what do you do for number 2? And they didn't have an answer. They said they didn't have an answer. And they were so shocked that she would ask that they were completely out of sorts for the rest of the meeting. It's a very important question for anybody using an MSP. And actually, you can any vendor that you work with that connects to your computers to do stuff, that could be consultants, that could be an application partner, that could be an MSP, that could be any number of things. You should ask that question too. And number 2, just as a little add-on at the end of this thing, all of those platforms should have multi-factor, dual factor enabled, period, across the board into time. So I know I kind of went off the rails a little bit, but I want to share that story about just those are the type of things and those are the considerations that you really need to have for your MSP. I just want to add that in there. I thought it was a fun story.
No, absolutely. And it helps to illustrate just kind of real world, what that sort of looks like when you're having those conversations and what next steps look like and how you proceed and get your answers. So that's it for today. We want to thank everybody who joined us as far as the solutions that you want to be looking at for your business. If you have any additional questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to IronEdge Group. We're online. You can find us in our YouTube section down below, and just feel free to link back to our website. Reach out if there's any questions that you have. If you're a current client, reach out to your customer success team. If you're wanting services, feel free to reach out to our sales group, and we'll be happy to figure out a way that we could get you in front of somebody and help answer some of your questions about your business. So, Dan, thank you so much. It was a pleasure working with you today.
Thank you. It was good to be here. I hadn't been on one of these in a bit, so it was nice to come back.
Ditto. All right. Well, we'll talk to you all soon. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.